and not just, and if anything defines you, there's never enough of it, right? Like if money defines you, ever met people that money defines them?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and there's never enough of it, right? And they gotta let you know how much everything they have costs, right? My brother's like that. Oh my God, he married a woman with $25 million and it's still not enough. I mean, he always calls up, Liz is upset because that Porsche that she bought, and in her garage, the temperature control went out in the garage, and she went out, there was frost on the window. I'm like, seriously? You're worried about frost on your Porsche window? I said, wow. I said, you need to come.
There's kids in Ethiopia dying of
Yeah. I said, did you know there are people that have to eat rescue mission food? Anybody ever had to eat rescue mission food?
Slept on the ground last
Yeah,
night?
yeah. Or been in a box in Times Square. Okay, like hello. So, all right. What's that? Oh, I used to serve that. I didn't like I said, can't we do something better? This is like disgusting. So, all right. For the last week, we talked about the positives and the negatives about drinking and using, and about how the things that we value. The nature of addiction is that when it starts getting bigger than you, or the things that matter to you, addiction says, I know you care about your character, your family, your job, your whatever, but you have to work for me first. Anything you got left over after that, you can take care of. But when I call you, it's kind of like a jealous girlfriend, like you're going to see me and nobody else, all right? And then when I call you, you better answer. That's the way addiction just gets. So, but the thing is, the thing that makes giving it up hard is that it does all the positive things that it can do for you. And that's a big challenge in early recovery, is starting to find some of those other ways. So last week I just asked you to start thinking about what are some of the positive things that alcohol and drugs did for you. I mean, some of the things that you liked about it. So we're just gonna let's just get a couple examples. Like, what are some of the positive things it did for you?
Socially, I mean, it got me a couple jobs.
Yeah, okay, so it can be social, okay? Because it's a way of communicating, yeah, doing whatever. And for me, it was like social lubrication, okay? It's a whole lot easier to talk and interact and.
Got a couple girlfriends out of the bars.
Yeah, okay, all right. So, sex, hookups.
Built my self-esteem up some.
Yeah. So self-esteem, like confidence, right? When you're drunk. So, yeah. The last person that I sponsored in AA before the person I'm sponsoring now was a young guy, right? And he said, Chris, I can't talk to girls when I'm not drunk. But when I'm drunk, I'm Don Juan. At least I thought I was till I saw a video of myself. I found out I was Don Don't, right? Because he was like, I'm all up, hey, like thinking I'm all it. And he says, I'm an ugly drunk, Chris. I'm an ugly, sloppy, happy drunk, And I said, well, that's better than a crybaby drunk, right? You ever seen those people? Crybaby drunks at the bar? They're like, stay away from me, man. You're bringing me down. Like, you're a bummer, right? So, okay, so self-esteem or confidence, it can, that ties into that, like, helping you be more social in situations. Like, I used to like dancing when I was drunk. I remember the first time I was going to go out to the club, and I said, oh, God. I can't, whatever. Same way with, that can be the same way with sex, too. Some people have never, ever been sexually active without being high. And then when you get sober, it's like, oh. Like, I started getting drunk and high at 10 years old, right? So when I was 24, I had never had a sexual encounter my entire life without being high. And the first time it was like, whoa, am I going to remember how to do this? My sponsor said it's like riding a bike. Okay, he said, but your motivation's different today, right? So what are some other positive things it does for us? Yeah, so it alters our mood, right? Alters our mood. Which ties into, this is the number one reason why people drink and use. Right? The number one. Because would you pay the same amount of money for a 6-pack of root beer that you would for a 6-pack of beer? No. Okay. Or an ounce of tobacco that you would for an ounce of weed? No. No way, right? Okay. So it alters our mood. It changes the way that we feel. Okay. And you know, the other part about that is that it's immediate, right? So you use it and it starts to change your brain chemistry and your brain structure like we talked about immediately. You know, you can't give addicts you couldn't give addicts a pill and say, here's a pill, and you're going to, if you take this pill, in 10 years, now you won't be able to get high before that. This pill is going to keep you from feeling high for the next 10 years. But 10 years to the day, when you took that pill, you're going to have the best high, better than any crack high, better than any high you ever had in your entire life. An addict would look at you and go, oh, hell no. Like, what? I have to wait 10 years for that? That ain't happening, right? Okay, so it alters our mood and it's pretty immediate, okay? So, and it kind of ties into like that thing about stress relief too, right? Stress relief, okay? And recreation, I think that kind of ties into, yeah, the social thing too, right? There also. It can tie into self-esteem, feeling more comfortable going out doing things and trying things, okay? So the recreation ties into that as well. Yeah, the number one question that a lot of my people that sponsor in AA, they'll all say to me is like, what do you do for fun if you're not getting high or drinking? I have no idea, you know?
Sex.
Yeah, what's that?
Having sex.
Yeah, well, you know what? And then they go, but how do I have that without when I get drinking? Okay. Yeah, that's right. And it all comes down to motivation, right? Right? Because sex is a gift. And any gift can be misused. You know, you can use people like drugs, right? You know, because that's my sponsor. You know, in AA, they all say, what, wait a year, right? Before, if you're not in a relationship, wait a year before you start dating, because you got to get a relationship with yourself first. Because if you're not, you know, I mean, if you don't know yourself, you know, Buddha said you marry the mirror reflection of yourself. When you look in the mirror, the image is inverted, but the essence of you is the same. Okay, so unhealthy people hook up with unhealthy people. You may act it out differently. You know, abusers marry victims, addicts marry codependent people, okay? But it acts itself out the same. So, you know, I asked him, I said, does that mean you can't hook up the first year that you're in recovery? He says, I don't know. Can you be honest with the person? I said, what do you mean? Well, go up to him and say, you know what, I'm too unhealthy to be in a relationship right now. And I'm taking at least a year to learn how to stay clean and sober. But I got needs and desires. If you got needs and desires and we can hook up without getting involved at all, you willing to go there? I said, you can't say that to people. That sounds crappy, man. That just sounds like, that's a terrible thing to say to somebody. And he says, well, it's honest, isn't it? It's better than going up and saying, hey, I think we should get together. I really like you. You're this, you know, trying to make it something that it's not. And I said, well, I never said, just don't know if I could say that to somebody. He said, why not? He said, you never know. There could be somebody out there that is willing just to do the same. But then at least the motivation's the same, right? And you haven't lied. And he said, now the other thing you got to really think about with sex, Chris, is that, you know, men think, you know, I always heard that like, there was all saying that women need a reason to have sex, men just need the place. Right? So men and women approach sex differently. Even if a woman tells you, oh, I'll just hook up and it'll just be this, it's a totally different experience for women than it is for men. They have a much harder time just having it be about the physical thing. But men still get affected by it too, right? Because, you know, I always heard that when you're hooking up, you leave a little piece of you with them. You always leave a part of you with them, and you take a little piece of them with you. And just hope it doesn't give you something else, right? So, I'm serious, hey, there's scary things out there, so that can hurt you. Okay. All right. Anything else you can think of, positive-wise, that it does for you?
I used it as a painkiller,
Yeah, painkiller, okay.
self-medicated kind.
Self-medicating. All right, self-medication, I like that. A lot of people, they say it takes a while, like you got to clear up first to see what you actually have left with. Like really if you have PTSD, how severe that might be, if you have clinical depression, if you have bipolar disorder, if you have, other, mental health issues that you really might need some medication to deal with and things. Like I didn't know for years that like like my drug of preference is anything stimulant wise. I loved it. And I could take it and go to sleep. It just made me feel normal. And other people would be like wired like this for days, and everything. And I was just like, I feel like this and everything. And then when I got sober, cleared up, and it like took a long time for me to get diagnosed correctly that I actually have severe attention deficit disorder, as an adult. And I probably had it as a kid. And for years I was like self-medicating. They diagnosed me for a long time as depression because I was getting fired from jobs because I couldn't do paperwork. I couldn't stay organized. Couldn't sit in a room, I couldn't watch a whole movie I never watched a whole movie or a whole TV show the whole way through. Had to get up and get out. Because attention deficit disorder means that this part of your brain, the frontal lobe, is what takes all the information when it comes into your brain and it takes it to where it's supposed to go. So people with attention deficit disorder, it's kind of, you remember like in the old days, they used to have train conductors that would get out and switch the tracks, manually like this, to switch a train off the track to go whatever. Well, for people with ADD, it's like this. The trains are the switches are real slow. So everything gets backed up right here, and you just can't handle too much coming at you. So stimulation, too much information, it's just too overwhelming. And so you got to get up and leave. And I lost some jobs because of that, because I couldn't sit in front of the computer. It's too much information, and then all this coming at me and everything, and then they were saying your paperwork's getting behind, So I finally got diagnosed like 8 years ago correctly. And my doctor said, you need to be on this medication because you're off the chart with this, Chris. And I go, I don't take medication, I'm in recovery. He said, you don't have to take medication, but nobody has to live with you either. Okay. Because you're a jerk when you're not on your medication, if you're not getting this treated. Because, no frustration tolerance, right? No whatever. And it took that, I've been like, that was like 19 years in recovery of getting the wrong diagnosis. Everybody said you're depressed. Finally got the right doctor who said, you're depressed because you keep getting fired. Because I'd be depressed too. And he said, this is how we'll know. If you're taking the right medication, you'll feel better soon. And if you're not, we know it's not the right medication. So I said, all right. And he said, when you take this kind of medication, Chris, it's a stimulant, but I'm your monitor and your schedule. You have to have a schedule, and I'm your monitor. You can only get a month of it at a time. And if you use it all up before then, you can't get any more, because they'll catch you. If you doctor shop, they will catch you. Okay? So, and he said, you have a different motivation. You don't want to use it to get high. You want to manage your life today. There's some people that have chronic pain. Anybody have chronic pain issues? Like if you have injuries or other things like that, if you have to take medication, okay? Yeah. If you have to take that, then you have to have a monitor and a schedule. And what's your motivation for using? If you have PTSD, if you have an anxiety disorder, something like that, and you need to have medication for that, like a PRN, everybody knows what PRN means, right? As needed medication. People think that panic attacks aren't real, right? If you have anxiety disorder, and people tell you it's all in your head, and, I always want to tell them, you've never had a panic attack. Because, the threat may not be real today, but the attack, the panic attack is real. How you feel. People have had strokes that have had untreated panic attacks because their anxiety stimulates their blood pressure, all that kind of stuff goes through the roof, if they're that overwhelmed,